When we learn the names of the continents in school, we are taught there are 7, but hidden beneath the waves of the South Pacific lies a massive secret that was missed for centuries. Scientists have recently confirmed the existence of Zealandia, a vast landmass nearly the size of Australia that is almost entirely submerged under 2 miles of ocean water. Millions of years ago, this eighth continent was part of a supercontinent, but as the Earth shifted, it stretched and thinned until it sank, leaving only New Zealand and New Caledonia poking above the surface like the tips of giant mountains. This discovery proves that even in the modern age of satellites and global mapping, the Earth still hides entire worlds right beneath our feet. It reminds us that our perspective is often limited by what we can see, while the true scale of our planet's history remains buried in the deep. According to botanical science, bananas are classified as berries, but strawberries are not. This sounds completely backwards until you learn what botanists actually mean by berry. A true berry must come from a single flower with one ovary and have seeds embedded in the flesh. Bananas fit this definition perfectly. Each banana comes from one flower, and those tiny black dots inside are actually seeds, though cultivated bananas have been bred to keep them small. Strawberries, on the other hand, come from a flower with multiple ovaries, and those seeds you see on the outside are technically individual fruits themselves. The red part you eat is just swollen tissue. Raspberries and blackberries aren't berries either, for the same reason. Meanwhile, grapes, kiwis, and even pumpkins are all berries. The confusion happens because everyday language and scientific language don't always match. It shows us that the names we give things often come from tradition and appearance rather than deeper truth. Sometimes what we think we know is just the surface, and looking closer reveals a completely different pattern underneath. It sounds exaggerated to say 1 teaspoon of honey represents a lifetime. Honey feels cheap and easily available, but a single worker bee produces only about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey during its entire life. The surprising detail is that thousands of bees must work together, flying millions of kilometers, to fill one jar. This happens through precise coordination inside the hive. The realization is that small results often hide enormous effort. The lesson is that value isn't always visible on the surface. Some of the simplest things around us are built on extraordinary teamwork. If you threaten or harm a crow, it will remember your face and hold a grudge. Scientists have tested this by wearing masks while capturing and tagging wild crows for research. Years later, when researchers wore the same masks in completely different locations, the crows immediately recognized them and scolded them aggressively. Even more remarkable, crows that weren't captured but only witnessed the event also learned to recognize and harass people wearing those masks. They teach each other. Crows share information about threats across their social groups, passing warnings from bird to bird. Young crows learn which humans to avoid by watching the reactions of older crows. This means a crow you've never personally encountered might already know your face if another crow decided you were dangerous. Their brains have a dedicated region for facial recognition similar to humans. They can distinguish between individuals, remember context, and adjust their behavior accordingly. It's not instinct, it's memory, learning, and culture. These birds possess a form of intelligence that mirrors our own in unsettling ways, reminding us that we are not the only creatures on this planet who remember, who teach, and who judge. You might assume that the largest ears on Earth are just for cooling down, but for an elephant, they are actually sophisticated sensors for a language we cannot hear. These majestic animals communicate using infrasound, low-frequency rumbles that travel through the ground for several miles, far below the range of human hearing. When one elephant speaks, others miles away receive the message through the sensitive skin on their feet and the tips of their trunks, feeling the vibrations of the earth as if it were a telephone wire. This secret network allows a matriarch to guide her herd toward distant water sources or warn them of danger long before it's visible. It is a powerful lesson in perception, revealing that the ground beneath our feet is constantly humming with a deep, ancient conversation that we are simply not tuned in to hear. Cleopatra VII, the last active pharaoh of Egypt, lived around 30 BC. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built around 2560 BC. That means Cleopatra lived approximately 2,500 years after the pyramids were constructed. The Apollo 11 moon landing happened in 1969 AD, which is only about 2,000 years after Cleopatra's time. When Cleopatra looked at the pyramids, they were already more ancient to her than she is to us. Ancient Egypt wasn't one continuous culture frozen in time. It spanned over 3,000 years, longer than the entire history of Christianity. Dynasties rose and fell, languages changed, technologies evolved. By Cleopatra's era, Egypt was more Greek than traditionally Egyptian, shaped by centuries of foreign influence. The pyramids were already mysterious ruins from a distant age that even the Egyptians of her time barely understood. It forces us to reconsider what we mean by ancient. History is not a flat line, but an enormous expanse of time, and the past we imagine as a single moment actually contains civilizations as distant from each other as we are from the medieval world. It sounds unrealistic that a food could last forever. We are taught that all foods rot with time, yet jars of honey found in ancient tombs have been opened thousands of years later and were still edible. The strange truth is that honey's low moisture, natural acidity, and antibacterial properties make it hostile to bacteria and microbes. As long as it stays sealed, it resists decay almost indefinitely. The realization is that preservation doesn't always require technology. The lesson is that nature sometimes perfects solutions humans spend centuries trying to replicate. Some things are built to endure far beyond a lifetime. When lightning strikes, it heats the air around it to approximately 30,000 degrees Celsius. The surface of the sun is only about 5,500 degrees Celsius. For a brief instant, that narrow channel of electricity cutting through the sky is 5 times hotter than the surface of our nearest star. The heat is so intense that it causes the air to expand faster than the speed of sound, creating the thunder we hear seconds later. The lightning bolt itself lasts less than a second, often just a few milliseconds. But in that fraction of time, it releases enormous energy, enough to power a home for weeks if we could capture it. We can't. It's too fast, too unpredictable, too violent. Ancient people saw lightning as the weapon of gods, and it's easy to understand why. Even with all our scientific knowledge, there's something primal and untouchable about it. It reminds us that nature still holds forces we can observe and measure but never truly control, moments of raw power that dwarf our technology and put even the sun to shame, if only for the blink of an eye. Venus takes 243 Earth days to complete one full rotation on its axis, but only 225 Earth days to orbit the Sun. This means a single day on Venus lasts longer than an entire Venusian year. The planet spins so slowly that you could walk fast enough to keep the Sun in the same position in the sky. Even stranger, Venus rotates backwards compared to most planets in our solar system. While Earth spins counterclockwise when viewed from above the North Pole, Venus spins clockwise. Scientists believe a massive collision early in the planet's history may have knocked it into this slow backward spin. The thick atmosphere, which creates a runaway greenhouse effect with surface temperatures hot enough to melt lead, also plays a role in slowing the rotation through friction. Time itself works differently there. What we take for granted as the rhythm of days and years becomes completely rearranged. It reminds us that even the most basic measures of time are not universal laws, but accidents of physics and history, and that each world in our solar system dances to its own strange and solitary clock.